Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Astrology News Report, an alternate view of world events as seen through the lens of Vedic Astrology, presented by yours truly, Ron Berger. Today is January 18th, 2015. So let's take a look at the week that was, and how the planets' positions in the zodiac matched up with the past week's events. A week after the bloodbath at the Charlie Hebdo offices in Paris, the incident continues to grow even more legs, turning into a global debate on free speech versus hate speech versus blasphemy versus retribution, and on and on. Speeches, demonstrations, both for and against, all over the world, with every leader, pundit, and scholar taking sides. In astrology, speech is Mercury. Venus is values. The two planets have been in rapt conjunction for over a week. When planets are less than 1 degree apart, they are in the condition known as Graha Yuddha, planetary war. In Vedic astrology, planets don't like being on top of each other. Mercury, as speech, is forced to combine with Venus, planet of values. Problem is, the energy gets interpreted differently depending on who is expressing it. Also, Saturn was sending its special third house aspect onto the Mercury-Venus combination, creating an energy pattern of restriction. In fact, a black French anti-Semitic comedian was arrested for a Facebook post because France prohibits hate speech against Jews, which of course raised the question why hate speech directed at Muslims is not a crime under French law. Again, Venus is values and Mercury is speech. Adding more tension to the whole mess was last week's Mars-Saturn interaction via an exact square aspect, along with the two planets exchanging signs, putting more juice into the energy pattern of Mars' violence and Saturn's punishment. Another terrorist cell located in Belgium was eliminated before it could do any dirty deed, and that was just the beginning. Security forces in several European countries are not being shy about going after other suspected terrorist conspirators. Saturn began transiting in Scorpio last November. This put Saturn in the USA chart's 12th house. This is a problematic transit, since Saturn is a natural malefic, in other words, tending to produce harmful events. And the 12th house in a country's chart indicates all sorts of undesirables, including criminals, traitors, spies, and yes, terrorists. Last week, there were 2 separate incidents of 12th house problems. An unemployed bartender was found to be plotting to poison Speaker of the House, John Boehner. And in another case, an Ohio man was caught planning on setting up an ISIS cell in the U.S. and bomb the U.S. Capitol. He was arrested by the FBI. In a direct confrontation with President Obama, the House of Representatives passed a Homeland Security funding bill that included a provision for overturning Obama's executive order last year that allowed illegal immigrants with U.S.-born citizen children to get temporary residence status. As shown in last week's review of the week, the president has Mars transiting in a position directly opposite his natal Mars, an astrological pattern that clearly indicates challenges and confrontations. This week, on Tuesday, the president will give his State of the Union speech before Congress. Mars will be in exact conjunction with Neptune, the planet of dreams and the irrational, in the president's second house of speech. We'll be watching what happens there. According to the Vedic natal chart of the country, the USA is now in a sun subperiod, which began in November of last year and continues until April of this year. The sun rules the sign Leo, which is the 9th house of the USA chart, the house that signifies the country's laws, courts, and judges. So, I predicted back in November that there would be some significant court action coming soon. Well, last Friday we found out what that will be. The Supremes finally decided to agree to hear a case that will decide if same-sex marriage is legal in the USA. Yep, after all these years of states being left to decide on their own and endure challenges from lawsuits that landed in the federal district courts, we now have some federal courts saying same-sex marriage can't be banned due to the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, and another federal court saying, nope, who a state issues a marriage license to gets determined by that state. So far, gay marriage is legal in 36 states. The hearing will be in April, with the decision expected in June. That'll do it for this week's Review of the Week. You can keep up with daily astrological developments and contribute your own thoughts by following me on Twitter at Astro News Report.